Hello, welcome to today's class. In the previous session, we have already talked about how to write a good essay. We have talked about writing the introduction for an essay, the body and conclusion for the essay. In today's class, we would be understanding how is critical thinking important in writing an essay and what are the good writing styles that we should follow to score good. So let's start with the first thing, that is the critical thinking. Now, for any essay that you are writing, it is suggested that you spend at least 1/4 of the total time in brainstorming or thinking. Okay. When you think, you generate a series of ideas. Now, critical thinking directly impacts your writing style. How does it do so? Now, I have a series of ideas, but if I am unable to follow my ideas into a coherent fashion, it seems useless. Supposedly, this is a lift where I'm entering, and these are the buttons in the lift. Is this series coherent? A coherent series would be orderly arrangement of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9. Okay. Instead of this arrangement, a lift has this arrangement. So what is there? You have a series of ideas, but there is no proper organization. So very important part of writing a good essay is to have a critical thinking, then generate a series of ideas, organize those ideas into a proper fashion, and that must be a coherent flow of ideas. So the very important part here is having a coherent flow of ideas. Now, what is asked into the question is very important. So the words are very important. If it is asked to compare, okay, that means you have to talk between two elements A and B. Okay. Then there can be word like contrast that shows how A and B are different. So how do they differ? You will explain those. In the question where there is written criticize, okay, you need to point out the pros and cons. If it is asked defend, then you must be able to tell all the points which prove it. Okay. If you are asked to discuss and review, then you would be talking about the very much intricacies of the topic. Okay, and illustrate the examples as well. Okay. So these are the various terms that are used while asking a question. So these are the writing styles and the things that are useful not only for writing essays but also for writing questions in the mains paper. So now there are some of the words which are known as direction words. Direction words are the words which directly tell you what to do. So if the question says prove, that means whatever is given as a statement in the question, you have to explain that. Okay. Then there can be summarize and outline. You are asked to illustrate. Illustration always means giving examples. So if you are asked the word illustrate, that means you are supposed to give examples from your day-to-day life or the examples that you know. Now once you are done with these basic format in mind, you must be able to write in a very systematic form. When you are asked to write in a systematic form, you must prepare yourself. So it's very important to look before you leap into. The first thing that you must know is what are you writing about? So goal or the purpose that you want to do. Okay. Then you must have the audience or the people who would be reading your writing. So in this case, they are mostly the examiners. Okay. Then you must design a format in which you are going to write. So either you would be writing as a critic essay or a contrast essay or a compare essay. You must have it in mind prior, then you start writing. Okay. And finally is the language. Language is another very, very important criteria when you talk about writing an essay. Okay. So when we start with these things, what is important here is, this is commonly known as the PAFL. Okay. So it's the PAFL guidelines that we follow while writing the answers. Now, as we talked about, first and the foremost thing is the series of ideas. Now, when we talk about ideas, idea is basically the heart of the message or the content. It follows around the main theme and it tells how you can imagine your mind. So it's the main essence of the essay, I could say. Okay. When you are thinking about some idea, you must be very sure that the idea that you want to propagate is clear, it's obvious, okay? Then it is small, it's not too lengthy, and it is focused. Someone who is reading your idea can clearly understand what you are talking about. You can enrich your ideas with examples or events from daily life. So this is the thing that is very important for ideas. Now is the organization, as I explained here. So for organization, what we talk about is basically, so organization basically talks about arranging the ideas in proper sequence, having a good introduction with a bonding link to the body, and finally a link to the conclusion and a small and sweet conclusion. So that's basically what is organizing. The introduction and conclusion should be very strong in verbal sense. Okay? Now, when we talk about ideas and organizing the ideas, we must be very sure what kind of information we want to put into. If I have 10 ideas in mind, I will have to select of these 10 ideas, only 8 ideas are exactly applicable. Then I'll have to decide, these are the 8 ideas. Idea 2 should be the first idea that I'm jotting down. Then idea 5 should be the second idea that I'm jotting down. So first is sorting out the ideas and then arranging the ideas. So sort the ideas and arrange the ideas is another important thing that we need to understand. Now, what to include? When I am following a flow of material, there are a lot of sources that are coming into my mind and going. When I start the essay, I have a certain mindset. But as I start writing, the very important thing is my mindset should not change. For example, if I am writing about corruption in India, okay, I start with the theme that most of the political leaders are corrupt. Okay. Now, as I write, I feel that it's not the political leaders that are correct, but it's the complete system that is corrupt, and that system is not allowing any honest political leader to rise. Okay. So slowly and gradually, when I'm writing what is happening, my thought process is changing. Okay. So I should think this prior to writing down, because once I start writing down and if I have a change in my thought process, that would affect my essay. So it's very important that you think prior to you start writing. So you must be aware of the complexities that you can generate if you are not properly thinking as you just start writing. When you start writing, evidence is a very important thing that you must include. Evidence can be in form of first-hand information. If you are coming across the street and seeing something that you really want to emphasize, you can mention that. You can quote books, journals, articles, newspapers. Okay. Then you can quote some personal communications you had with your colleagues or your family, which you feel is really important and one must include that. Now, the very important thing is when you are trying to write, you must not just summarize the ideas, rather, you should analyze the ideas. Now, let's understand how we can do this. So, here is a very good example that will help you understand how you can summarize and how you can analyze an answer. So, in the summary, I can say policy actions in economic development are necessary for women empowerment. So if I'm writing on women empowerment, I can just write this sentence, which most of the students will do. But on the other hand, what would be an impactful essay would be analyzing the same statement and writing it. It can be in the following form. First, I can write, I believe that poverty and lack of opportunity breeds inequality between men and women. So that when economic development reduces poverty, women condition improves on two bases. First, when the poverty is reduced, the condition improves for everyone, and women's condition would definitely improve. Okay. In the other count, I can say gender inequality declines as poverty declines. So this is one way of analyzing the summary that I have mentioned. In the another statement, I can say economic development, however, is not enough to bring about complete equality between men and women. Policy action is still necessary to achieve equality between genders. Such policy actions would be unambiguously justified if empowerment of women also stimulates further development, with starting a virtuous cycle. So this is another way of analyzing the summary statement about women empowerment. So it's very important that you not summarize the answer, you don't summarize the statements, but you try to analyze it critically. When you are trying to analyze it, try to enhance your creativity. Be as lively as possible. So just try to think outside your parameters, okay? Try to follow an approach which most of the students won't follow. So have a very engaging title. It can be humorous in nature. You can add interesting quotations at the start of the answer. Examples are very important for any essay that you are writing. An essay without an example would definitely lead you to lose marks. Okay, so there are some things you can do. For example, because examples cannot be generated at a click of instance, so you can handpick them before. Okay. So what is the best idea is to think about 10 to 15 most broad or common topics that you would be thinking about writing, and you must have prior examples that you would be quoting on those topics. Now examples can be from historical perspective, what is taught about in the school, any small story that you have heard in your college days or school days. It can be about universal themes. It can be about World War, independence movement, nuclear holocaust. Then you can include examples which are based on current events, recent elections, how the corruption was prevalent in recent elections, like Olympics, disturbance in Mid East, so Midwest. So these are the kind of current event topics that you can include, or you can include personal experiences. When I talk about personal experience, you can start with statements like try not to go too far overboard though, and then you can try and make up with, where you can explain your own experience in just a kind of cheesy language, and that would be unique to you, and it would definitely score you much better marks than other students. The next important thing here is writing styles. Now, if I am giving you a topic to write on, for example, women empowerment, 90% of the student will have the similar content, because all of you would, your basic aim would be talking about women empowerment, how our social reformers promoted women empowerment. Okay, so the material or the content would be similar for most of the students. The only way you can score more is by improving your writing styles. So when you are talking about improving the writing traits, the first is the ideas and the organizations that we have already talked about. The next is the writing style. You can pick up 3 of the following writing styles. It can be narrative, where you are trying to depict a kind of a story or a personal experience. Okay, it can be a kind of expository, where you are trying to explain what is difficult to understand, a concept that people usually don't understand simply, is a kind of expository writing. And finally is persuasion, where you are trying to convince the reader to accept a specific viewpoint. So you can support your viewpoint with facts, opinions. You can repeat something, you can highlight some of the evidences. A very good way is to include facts and figures. So statistics gives you a much added benefit in case of writing. Okay, because if you are mentioning statistics, examiner might think you have in-depth knowledge on that topic. Then you can include rhetorical questions. What does that mean? That means the things that are apparent, but you are putting a question to it. For example, I say Taj Mahal is beautiful. Okay. So this is a kind of direct statement that I'm mentioning. In a rhetorical format, I can say, must one argue about the wilderness of Taj Mahal? Okay, and put a question mark. So that would kind of put a greater emphasis on what you are trying to explain. You can also include inclusive statements. We believe that, we strongly suggest that. Okay, so these are kind of persuasive arguments that you can put. Now, voice is very important. You must have the energy and passion to apt your audience. Okay, so it's very important that what you are trying to convey, the other must be able to follow it. And once you want others to follow your voice, you must have a very specific choice of words. I can say in a very simple language, the dog barked, but it seems very, very boring. On the other way, if I say a tiny spotted Chihuahua yapped annoyingly until I picked him and snuggled him close to me and rocked him like my little baby. This statement sounds much more cool and much more better than the statement I previously said, that is the dog bark. So it's very important to convey your message into a very interesting and a natural manner that would engage the reader. So engaging the audience is very important when you are writing a good essay. There should be a fluency in the sentences that you are writing. That is another important part of good writing styles. Okay, so you must have the flow and the rhythm, and you must try to improve this with every writing style that you are doing. And then there should be very proper usage of punctuations and grammar. It's like wrapping around what you have read and what you're trying to convey. So it's very important that you have a very good sense of using punctuations and grammar. Using semicolons is very important. It gives a kind of sophistication. Most of the students will either use the connecting words and, if, or, neither, nor. Okay, but semicolons, like for example, I'm using two independent clause here. I love fruits. It's good for you. Okay, so it's demarcated by the semicolon. Being two independent clauses, when you are connecting it by a semicolon, it gives much more sophistication in writing, and the examiner feels that you are much more skilled in writing any example. Okay, so refining the writing is very important. And how can you refine your writing? Always write with an active voice, not the things like this happened, that happened. This should happen. Okay, so there should be an active voice. It should mainly be in present tense. Do not use just big and heavy words to impress the examiner unless and until you know the meaning of those words. Small sentences make your writing much more crisp. Okay, so try to arrange sentences in a fashion that it follows the main idea. It's not necessary that you just put in big words because you want to impress the examiner. Try to use as descriptive language as you can see. Now, here is a kind of introduction that I believe is a very good introduction. It has been picked up from Journal of Economic Literature. It's about, again, gender inequality. So in this introduction, what I'm trying to focus here is why I call this introduction as a good introduction, because in the starting I'm saying it's talking about persistence of gender equality is mostly starkly brought home in the phenomena of missing women. This term was coined by Amartya Sen. Now, in the first sentence, I'm trying to put in my knowledge so the examiner knows that I'm having a broad sense of ideas about the topic. I also know about Amartya Sen and how he classified the term, in which article he mentioned it. And in the last sentence, I'm trying to put out some statistics that would give a feel that you are really knowledgeable and really interested into this issue. When I'm saying today it is estimated that 6 million women are missing every year, of these 23% are never born, 10% are missing in early childhood, 21% in reproductive years, and 38% above the age of 60. That means I'm really trying to focus the gender inequality that is existed in this society. So these are the kind of examples that I do believe are very, very good and would score you much better marks than other examples would. Now, what I suggest students at this point of time is to try to think. So here are two topics that I usually suggest. Mobile phones, a blessing or a curse. Try to think about it and write an essay on it. And then write an article about the places that you think are good to visit for a holiday, be it in India or abroad. So when you are trying to write these articles, just focus on these two topics, start to write down, and then evaluate yourselves. How will you evaluate what you have discovered while writing the answers? Are you in favor of the point that mobile phones is a blessing, or are you in favor of the point that mobile phone is a curse, or you believe you want to highlight both the points, or as you are writing, your viewpoint is changing. You previously believed when you started writing that it is good that we are using mobile phones, but slowly at the end, when you are finishing up or writing off your essay, you feel that mobile phone is not good and it's a curse to a human society. Okay, so try to evaluate your thought process as and when you write. You must have enough evidences and examples for everything that you are mentioning. Okay, if you are opposing a point of view, you must have an argument for it. Okay, so try to write it once, then think what you have written and rewrite it again. The second time when you are writing, you yourself will feel a significant difference in what you have written in the previous manner. So writing style definitely improves with practice. Okay, so this was about the basic writing styles in essays. In the next session, we would be covering about the 6 common errors that we do while writing a good essay and how can we improve on the errors that we do. Okay, so stay tuned for the next session. Have a good day ahead.